opportunity.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So with Funda AI, I think you'd relate to this more actually because of like the journey you've taken. With Funda AI, the goal is to it's an AI school to build young Africans between the ages of 12 to 18 into software engineers who can compete globally for these remote roles. Just compete globally, become a very, very skilled engineer. So I don't know about you, but for me, the path to self-learning software engineering was a long path, a very long path. And going at it, even through boot camps, all this stuff, it was not easy, honestly. It was a very difficult path. I think if you and from the startup that I built before to train talent, I realized that if you capture a child's mind at an earlier stage, those people are like sponges. We underestimate how fast they actually learn. Once you get them hooked on something and they really want to do something, they will learn insanely fast. So the goal is to teach them this like technical skills, the soft skills, being able to communicate technical work to other engineers, to other stakeholders, the grit, all that stuff from a very young age. The approach is two-pronged. There's a virtual campus and a virtual apprenticeship. Now, the virtual campus is the parents buy their kids a laptop. The laptop comes with what I call an offline AI brain and an ecosystem of AI tutors. In actual, like practical terms, there is a local LLM model, a small model running on the laptop. There is an app store to distribute the AI tutors as desktop apps. And then there are the AI tutors that are desktop apps. Now, the AI tutors, think of them as this. It's like these little apps that help build a child's mind into a child that can think like an engineer. So tools around pattern recognition, around problem solving, around building projects, around things that the way we think, basic systems level thinking, if you want to call it that. So there's that aspect. Now, I know for a fact that even for very driven adults, self-driven learning is very difficult. Man, there's like MOOCs nowadays, like so many MOOCs. And the edtech, this edtech revolution was around like making information democratize what they say. So everyone has access to information. Everyone has access to like there's a Harvard University degrees and whatnot. But look at the actual core results. It's not really resulting in people becoming smarter. Like the MOOCs are things that people take sometimes just to tick boxes. You don't actually acquire knowledge from them. So what actually like facilitates that knowledge acquisition is struggling and building with other engineers. The raw work you require, the thing, the gap between like you have the theory and like the practice is like when you start working in a job and then you have that pressure on you and you start building, making mistakes. So the reinforcement for them would happen through virtual apprenticeships. Now, open source has played a huge role in many engineers' career and their growth. We take the same concepts here. We open source the concept of building AI tutors. So we get engineers like yourself who are passionate about building AI tools to help educate kids. Um, Now I have this discussion with you, for example, and then through this discussion and later discussions, we scope out an AI tutor that you believe you would want to build to help kids learn from the experience you've gained as an engineer to help them think more like you, whatever that AI tutor is. There's ideas I can give you after this call. So we scoped that out. And because I like building, I enjoy building, and I've built many AI tutors myself. So I want to make sure that this build it happens quickly. So I will help you build that AI tutor. But because we're working asynchronously, I'm gonna have to create like tickets so we can assign like tasks to each other and just keep track of what's been done, what hasn't been done. Now, some of these tickets are gonna be very small things like styling buttons or styling a page. Now, these are things we can then give to kids. The kids will have a mentor. So the mentor will receive these tickets and explain to the kids what the task is and the importance of the task. The kids will then make or write code for that particular task, push the code. They would get a review, like a code review from so we review the code as though we're reviewing a junior engineer's work, the same level of strictness. We send the review either in text form or in video form, like you would to another engineer, basically. And then the mentor would then get that code review and use that to educate the kids based on their level of understanding about where they went wrong and what they need to learn to rectify those errors. And the kids then make changes to rectify those errors. We accept the code eventually. So that's the cycle that it's like they're part of a job. They're part of a company, essentially. So the assumption here is that when you get kids struggling on a real problem, the things they learn from the AI camp, the AI school stick a lot more. One, two, I don't know about you, but for me, what really got me hooked in engineering was when I built the first tool I could use myself. I built something, I can see it, I can use it. It's actually giving me value. That was the moment it was like, okay, I see the feedback loop. This is for me. And I think with kids, that's even more applicable. Now, when you get them building and then they build an AI tutor that they then use in their AI campus and that their friends then use in their AI campus, that is a very empowering thing for a child who wants to be a software engineer. You get them hooked. Once you have that engagement hooked with kids, everything else falls in place because kids are just like learning machines, so they will learn very fast, especially smart kids. So that's the core of how Funda AI works. Do you have any questions so far?
Yes, I do, but I'll keep them to the end of your demo.
Let's ask a question because I'm gonna go to a different part now. So let's ask the questions now, then I can just answer those questions.
They're not particular to the part you just shared. There's a general question on the concept.
Sure, sure, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm
Well,
saying
yeah.
they're not
So
particular to, we could pick them at the end of the demo. They're not particular to the section
no, it's
you
fine.
just went
You
through.
can ask
So
the question now. It's fine. I can answer the question now too. It's fine. It's fine. I don't
okay.
mind answering. Yeah.
Um okay. First, I'm curious about the business model. Sorry, my phone has been buzzing all day today. Weirdly, it's my birthday today, so I've been having like 1,000,001 calls.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Um, I want to really understand your intent with trying to teach kids, trying to teach kids AI in African, specifically in African. What's your drive? What's pushing you in this direction?
Okay. So
And
no, go on.
that's how it. No, no, that's how it.
So it's multiple reasons, but the main reason is that Africa is the youngest continent in like just demographically. We are reaching a stage where there's a demographic crisis across like all major countries in general. I believe that the average kid in the US does not aspire to be a software engineer. They aspire to be like a TikTok influencer. I believe there's something that happens when a country becomes wealthy. The aspirations of the future generation falls away. They're not as driven. We have the groundwork for a very driven demographic. People talk about, oh my God, AI is taking away jobs and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. But like, I work in a private equity that invests very heavily in the AI space. We invest in all like AI companies essentially. What I'm seeing is that like it's not that there's a belief that AI is going to take jobs. There's a belief that AI makes people more productive, and even that is still in question. It's like aside from code generation, we don't even know if that's actually the truth. So there's that. And then I'm seeing the trends around like remote work. Like US companies are actually like outsourcing talent more and more because they want to compete with China. They want to remain competitive. China's producing tons of engineers because of the raw numbers they have in the demographics. Now, this on a geopolitical like level, the competition between the US and China on the technology space, it's critical for the US to continue to survive as a superpower. The entire economy right now is hinging heavily on betting on AI and tech. Like all these pension funds, like everything that is tied to the US being a rich nation right now is stock market speculation. And that's coming primarily from tech. Over the last, I don't know, like 4 decades, tech has been the biggest driver of the US's continued dominance economically. And we're seeing this by how heavily they're investing in AI and betting on that, like with their life, essentially. So the idea that the US will suddenly stop like outsourcing work, it doesn't make sense. They're gonna need more engineers to remain competitive. So I want to build Africa to be the hub for engineers, for that like market. And they want to find engineers in places that are more strategically aligned with them. There's a pushback from like outsourcing to India. There's a lot of skepticism about the talent and the work ethic in India. So there's like people looking for alternatives. I've seen an edtech model in Africa scale to $1 billion company in Andela. Of course, their version was a little bit different, but I think that the one thing that's missing in all the edtechs in Africa is that we focus on that last mile, that like we want to get grads and upskill them, want to get existing this and upskill them. But in reality, back in the days, like really back in the days, we taught people skills by apprenticeships. So kids would shadow like adults. That's how they learned. I think there's something natural about that, about like a natural cycle to adults, like imparting their knowledge to kids and them learning through shadowing. So it's a combination of those things. I really believe that if you take a young person and just like shadow them, basically, mentor them, you're gonna build a far more impressive engineer than like just getting them through the conventional route, I'd argue. Again, I've also seen practical examples of this with like throughout my journey, I'd speak to oftentimes the white peers who just seem to be like these exceptional engineers for no reason whatsoever. And they'd always talk about how their dad taught them how to code when they were 10 years old and they're just building stuff with their dad when they're 10 years old. It's a very common story. So I think that that's my motivator primarily, a combination of those things. Again, another part of the puzzle is that I went through the journey myself. I'm an African. I came from a very poor country. I came from I've seen that entire journey myself. I've gone through it myself. So I believe that I've gone through the journey. I see what the journey entails. I think I understand the pieces from the Africa end. I understand the pieces from the US end. So it makes sense to me. Like it holistically makes sense to me, given that.
Okay. You know what I wanted to file this question to the end of the end of your demo. Let's do that. Let's do the first question to the end of the demo
Okay.
because it's going
Okay.
to we
Okay.
spend a lot of time on the
Okay.
philosophy of the idea, basically.
No worries, no worries. So the current progress, this is the last slide anyway. The current progress is that I launched an MVP. I got a 2013 MacBook Air. I got a model running on it. I got like was a DeepSeek Quinn 1.5 B per RAM. In reality, I'm not really relying on the local model that much. Whenever the kids are online, I make multiple calls to like open source models. I get responses, a lot of responses. I cache those responses. So when they interact with an AI tutor, it gives the appearance that it's actually like an offline experience, but all the responses have been cached beforehand for a very long time. Like it's a laptop, so you can cache a lot of information from just doing that. So I sent the MVP to my 12-year-old nephew. He's very driven. He aspires to be a software engineer too. And the reason that I specifically chose him, aside from him being my nephew, is that one, he goes to a private school, and that's the first demographic I want to go for because they can afford their parents can afford to buy a laptop. There's already like a precedence of like in his school, in his primary school, but he's going to secondary school now. They get them to buy tablets from grade one. The tablets cost actually about the same as the laptops, but it's tablets just for viewing books. So there's a precedence that's set. And I've spoken to other people in Nigeria and South Africa. A lot of private schools, especially, they have similar structures. They get the kids are buying laptops from a very young age. The precedence is there. For the second part is that I found that people in that demographic, unfortunately or fortunately, the parents tend to be more involved in the education. So if you want to add an extra accountability layer, you have the parents' involvement, which again allows for more accountability. When they miss a session, you can just talk to the parent and the parent just like rope them back in. It's easier to control those kind of kids. Things go smoother in that with that demographic. I've run weekly sessions, not every single week, but for the most part, for the last 12 weeks with my nephew. Now, that was more around understanding how does a 12-year-old's mind actually work, so I could build a model that actually makes sense given that I understand, because the 12 is the lowest cutoff point. If I know how the 12-year-olds' minds work, then it's easier to deal with like older kids and teens, for example. So in those 12 weeks, this is the model I've come up with from just like all that learning essentially. So that's the crux of the demo. I think you have more questions you wanted to ask, right? You said.
Right. Um, Firstly, I'll say I understand the scope of what you're trying to do. Uh, I'll give you two instances of my life where this has been very critical. Some form of mentorship has been critical to my career.
Mm,
Immediately after I left school, I knew I understood some tech, but I knew I understood tech from learning individually, from being a self-taught engineer,
mm,
YouTube's, Udemy, and the likes back then. But I knew I wanted to build, at that time it was called, oh, I don't know what, I've forgotten whatever it's called, but I wanted to build like global standard. I wanted to be a good engineer anywhere in the world and not just building self projects. And I got into not necessarily boot camp, but some sort of 6 week training that was organized by some amazing person at that time. Who was the uh chief quality control for some UK bank. I've forgotten the bank. So it was an amazing program where we were taught standards, and I can say that job spoiled like the first part of my career in terms of when I went for interviews, I stood out because I was able to do things in a very outstanding way. That was it. Then you mentioned Andela. I went into Andela as a senior engineer though, but I saw the effect on that my career as well. So there were those two experiences were amazing. However, I've seen a lot of people try to replicate it, and I have I I have seen even the first program I went to. I've seen some they after a while they crash and failed, and I've seen a lot of people fall into the same trap around that space, and I'm very passionate about um not just paying it forward, but I I knew what my options would have been like without tech. It
yeah.
wouldn't have been a nice option. But my options were very limited without tech. So I understand what like the opportunity this opens up to everybody and gives you like the global relevance. And but I'm curious for this. This is going to be like a back-to-back Spitfire session. For this, are you trying to build a business or you're trying to build a philanthropic mission?
Business, 100% business. I think that there's a lot of hype around fintechs. I think the major thing that we need right now in the continent is like an edtech revolution, like an actual edtech revolution, not just like making information available. So it's a business. And the way I see it is like initially I'm going for the private school demographic. It's a pretty large demographic if you factor in the entire continent in general. And if you think about it, like look at it this way. So we get like very driven kids, like because I want to be very selective in the beginning. Get kids who have an enthusiasm towards engineering and have that like aptitude, that the actual raw intelligence. You get them building stuff, building AI tutors. They're not building them alone, they're building them with other engineers. Now the engineers that they build with become touch points. They become touch points to continually mentor the kids. You know, when you build with a kid, as an engineer, you're gonna have some like when you hear back from this like from FundaAI from these kids, you're gonna feel something. You're gonna be willing to have a conversation. So it'll open up scope for future internships with kids within the continent itself, that is, or future mentorship, whatever that looks like. Some of these kids are gonna be brilliant. This goes without saying. There's gonna be one kid who stands out. People will see that because you already have that buy-in from like engineers at large where the engineers work in, some of the companies might be more inclined to have a conversation with FundaAI because I will reach out to these companies. Some of the companies might be willing to sponsor laptops to FundaAI. When they sponsor laptops, that lowers the cost for users. Suddenly, you don't have to buy a laptop anymore. You pay a subscription on a monthly basis. And again, even with the subscription, I found that in the diaspora, there are many people who are doing really well, like Nigerians, Zimbabweans, Kenyans, who want to give back to their community, who are willing to sponsor kids back home. So I'll be able to find people who are willing to sponsor a set number of kids. again, that opens up the talent pool even further. So now you have a better talent pool to use meritocracy to pick the right people for to continue building the platform. Now, as you're doing this, you're building more and more AI tutors. At some point, you've built so much in the AI campus that you're no longer building just raw engineering skills, you're building general purpose education skills, other things in tech that are important. You're building around that. So now you have a general functional, like a general purpose AI school to help kids learn different skills. Now that on its own can be a separate product that's sold and like to schools with subscription model too. But the core focus ideally remains that building engineers layer. I think as the money, the raw money accumulates from the actual product itself, the money to build engineers can you can invest more heavily in building engineers. You can invest more heavily in like I'm looking into this. I don't know how viable it is given the current like regime in the US, like politically. But like you can if you register the company in the US, some of the kids who are very brilliant, you can bring them over on a visa. Again, right now it's not going to be a very cheap thing, it's going to be very expensive, but you can start looking into ways to do that. To actually like, tap into that US market that's looking to outsource talent. Once you tap into the US market, the money flows a lot easier. So I'm thinking about it as a multi-step process. That makes sense.
Okay. And um, the coding of perfect being 12 to 18, you think those are literally labor laws and everything? Yeah, you think those are employable people that you could make some revenue from them being employable
So
or them being employed?
you wouldn't be employing them at that age. You're only employing them once they're ready to actually get employed. Between the ages of 12 to 18, what they're doing is just working through virtual apprenticeships. They're not actually employed. You're just getting them like getting them ready. The ones who are reaching the cusp of being able to actually work, those are the ones who you like can actually get like hired or get working somewhere else. And as they're doing that, they then become mentors to the junior talent. That's the idea. So you wouldn't be getting like a 12-year-old working. The actual work they're doing is more like with the virtual apprenticeship. They're building AI tutors for themselves. It's not really work per se in the legal definition.
Yep. So let me run through the concept again, the incorrect and the discrepancy I have, please.
So what's
So
that? Say
the
that again.
idea, I want to run through the concept, then please help me correct any wrong
Sure.
thoughts I have.
Sure. Sure. Go for it.
Right. So the idea is let's focus on AI tutors. The students are both building and learning from the AI tutors themselves.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And entry age is 12. The exit or max age is 18. So you could ideally a, a child could be in a program for 6 years between the age of at this inception. Obviously things might change in 6 months or whatever. But
Yeah.
the idea is child could be the process between the age of 12 to 18, and when you're 18, you're kicked off or you're sent out to the real world to experience life. That
Yeah. That's correct. Look, maybe in the future, maybe there's provision for this. Maybe when you're past the age of 18, there's like something different for you. You're more like a mentor figure, but like yeah, yeah, currently that's the assumption. Hello? Hello? Hi, Kay, can you hear me?
apologies. I've had like a horrible weather all day. It's been raining heavily. It's been affecting my eye speed. I've been having to switch eye speeds all day. All right. So at this stage, a child comes in by the age of 12, they buy the laptop. What's the revenue model? Are they paying for a monthly subscription or
Yes, that's
do
correct. So they buy the laptop and then there's a subscription they pay on a monthly basis.
okay. You have any ideal price range in mind?
$50. That's the price.
$50.
Yes. So that matches like what kids are at least in Zimbabwe, they're paying around about that much for robotics schools, give or take. Sometimes a little bit more than that.
every month or everything?
Every month. They're paying that per month. That's the per month cost.
Okay. I think that's I don't that's not a bad figure. I would okay, check that. So they're paying a $50 subscription.
Yeah.
You have an idea of how many tutors to a child per se? How many child to a tutor? Like the ratio for
It's a
this
good
amount of
question. Honestly, the mentor's role is going to be initially like more of they're not going to be in person. They're going to be like remote for the time being. The in-person requires a lot of investment. It's going to come later on.
no,
But I would say
you
from
don't need,
like, sorry, you're saying?
no, you don't really need in person that much. You could do in person once a year, some sort of in
Yeah,
person boot camp.
yeah, yeah. Maybe in person, like I don't know, like a meetup or something along those lines. You don't need in person that much, honestly.
Not nobody does that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
But
who knows what the future looks like. But I think that with that the ratio, I found with the previous setup that I had, the ideal ratio was like about that 20-ish mark, but then it's kind of a stretch because it's kids. You have to be really like laser focused and really making sure they understand things. But I think with like we can I can build AI tutors to support the mentors like I don't know how they interact with kids, if that makes sense. So maybe 1 to 15 to 20. What about that ballpark number, give or take?
and the sessions, yeah, they're going to be uh like assignment based. You get a project, you get working on it. When you run into a problem, you reach out to your mentor.
So I want to keep it like work, essentially. The mentor is always available for you to chat, and it's expected that you ask questions. And like it won't just be a kid just like randomly doing something themselves. They're going to be assigned a team. It'll be a bunch of kids working together, ideally. You want them to collaborate. At the same time, the danger with collaboration is like with collaboration, you're going to find one person doing a bulk of the work, others just lazing around. So I've got to figure out a way to balance that out. I think that's going to be more of like you kind of figure these things out in practice as you're doing them.
I think tech has stopped that already. Any task is given, you break it down and assign tasks to individuals. Like
Yeah, that's actually
it's not sprint process, it's not sprint planning before. So if you're running as a sort of work for at the beginning of every task, you could have some sort of sprint plan. The mentor and every person in that category could have a sprint plan and assign tasks, and then nobody's doing all the work. Everybody has to put out weights basically.
I like that. I like that. And you have retros to like for them to like retrospect and like t tell you what we need to do differently. Empower them, make them actually feel like they're part of a team. I like that a lot. Makes sense actually.
Okay. What's your immediate next plans for this?
So the next plan is just like get this this open source pod running because we haven't actually built an open source like Funda AI tutor. That hasn't happened yet. So I wanna see like what actually happens when you have like a couple of kids or one or a couple of kids actually involved in building an AI tutor. I want to share that in different communities and use that like that word of mouth to get the next set of users. And then I'm going to focus on getting just the first set of users just through word of mouth and just sharing things basically. Once I have this like steady pipeline of people who have come in through word of mouth and they're actually building things and I see the progress, then re-engage with schools. So I already have like some touch points with schools, but I'm going to re-engage with them once I have that like better track record, if that makes sense. Those are the immediate plans. I'm not worried about raising money. Like that's an afterthought. I want to bootstrap things for a while because it just allows you, it gives you more flexibility. Because you can just try things on the fly and you got to keep costs low when you bootstrap. So it forces you to like be very methodical about how you spend money. Oh, we have 1 minute left on this call before this thing runs out. So I'm not sure how we're gonna do this.
Is there any reason you don't use Google Meet for your call?
Sorry, what's that?
Is there any reasons you don't use Google Meet for your call?
There's actually no reason for that, to be honest. I just, this was like, I think Calendly is automatically linked to my Zoom for some reason. I'll just like create a Google Meet now and just like hop back on the call if you don't mind.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.